Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Jo and this channel is called Joey Sewy. Here we do all sorts of things, fabricy, sewing-y, knitting. Today I'm going to be experimenting with dyeing some fabrics. So we're going to get straight into the dyeing. I'm going to cut to me, I'm going to show you the fabrics, I'm going to show you them before I dye them, and then I'm going to show you them after I dye them, and we'll see how they turn out. So I have got 3 different garments and I'm going to dye them all with some Dylon. This is actually an old packet because it's been in my craft cupboard for a while. So if you're using an old packet, you also need some salt. However, if you're buying the dye now, you won't need the extra salt because it comes with the salt. So all 3 of these garments are going to be dyed in 3 different ways. This is a polo t-shirt and it's going to be dyed, and the green will go over the blue and it will make a darker green blue. It has actually been dyed before, so this is dye over dye, but the dye has washed out a lot because this has been worn and worn and worn, and it's got a few stains on it, which sometimes dye goes over, sometimes it doesn't. So we're just going to dye this one as an experiment. Into the same load of washing is going to be this white t-shirt, which is a plain basic long sleeve t-shirt which has got marks at the armpit, and it's not looking as white as it used to. So I'm going to dye this green in the hope that this looks more wearable, because it's not really wearable as it is. So it looks more wearable after it has gone green, and I'm going to tie dye this one, so I'll show you that in a minute. And then I have got this, which is a linen shirt. It's a men's linen shirt. These are all wet already and I'll explain why in a second, but this is a men's linen shirt, which my intention is, it's got fluff on out of the machine, my intention is that it is going to get dyed and then I'm actually going to cut it apart and refashion this t-shirt. So that is my plan with these 3 items. So the linen shirt and the blue are just going to go into the machine as is. They should go in wet. It's all on the instructions of the dye. So these have already been pre-washed. If you're working with brand new garments, then you will need to definitely pre-wash them because you need to take out any finishing. But these are all well-used garments, so they've been washed and washed and washed already. So with this one, I'm actually going to do a tie-dye effect with the white t-shirt. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and create a kind of stripe by bringing it together like that, and then we will tightly put string around, and then I'll do a mini version of that with the sleeves. So I'm going to get my string. I'm going to use macrame rope because it happens to be what I have around. Any kind of string at all will do. Because the macrame rope is a little bit thicker than average, then I might get a slightly thicker stripe than if you used a thinner string. This is a very imprecise technique. All tie-dyeing isn't a way to get really sharp images, especially not if you're going to do it in machine. So I am tying that as tight as I possibly can. I'm going to try and do it fairly evenly, and I'm going to try and do quite a few. And the idea of tie-dyeing is that wherever you create a barrier for the dye, so normally if you're dyeing something, you want the dye to get onto the fabric really evenly, and so it being scrunched up is definitely not what you want to do if you want an even result across all of the fabric. However, tie-dyeing uses that very principle in the opposite way, which is wherever the fabric has something on it that stops the dye getting in. So often that is by folding, by tying. Sometimes there are techniques that use actually putting a little bit of plastic over, or all sorts of things, but all of the techniques are trying to create some parts where the dye goes and some parts where the dye doesn't go. So I think we'll speed it up here and I will show you when I've finished. I'll just show you at that point. There's the neck, there's the body. I'm going to leave this untied, and then now I'm going to go down the arms and I'm going to tie them. Okay, there we are. We have the body, we have the two arms, the cuffs are free, and the neckline's free. And because I'm dyeing this t-shirt because I was concerned about the armpit area, I've left that as free as possible, so that will take as much dye as we can. Next stage is to go to the machine and put the dye in. So follow the instructions, but basically you place the dye, which is in here, in a bag. You pour all of that out into the barrel of the machine. I'm using a front loading washing machine, and then you add in the salt, and then you put the fabric on top and you run it on a long cotton wash. But all of that is described, whatever brand dye you use, it will all be described on the box, and you should follow the instructions for that. So the results are in. They are out of the washing machine. They have been washed, they have been dried. If you don't know the process, as I said in the other film, there are always instructions with the dye. Basically, you do machine dyeing once with the dye in there, you immediately wash again through a long cycle, and then you need to run your machine again empty whilst you're drying the clothes. Now, it's all gone a bit weird. I've dyed a lot of things, but this is the most curious result I've ever had with fabric dyeing. Basically, you saw all three before the start, and okay, one of them wasn't white, and they were all different fabrics, and I will talk a little bit about why I think this has happened, but essentially they've all come out very different. Yeah, so all three of them are different. This is the linen shirt that has come out this really quite bright green, and I guess this is the one that is the tropical green that was on the packet. So that's number one. This is the children's polo shirt, which was a mid blue-ish colour to start with, and that has gone kind of a sea green, quite a nice colour, but obviously that started on a different base, so it hasn't gone the same green, so that's a very different colour. And then this one, which was white to start with, swapping them around, so this one was white to start with, and this is the one that I tied the string onto. So there it is on the body, and here it is on the arms. But look at that, they were both white. We'll talk about that issue in a minute, but both of these garments were white to start with. This one is linen, and it's gone very much the colour of the packet. This one is cotton with elastane, and it has very much not gone the colour of the packet. I'm even double checking now what the composition it is. Oh, okay. Now that explains it. I assumed this was 100% cotton, or at least 95. It's not, it's about 60% polyester. So that is part of why that's happened. So when you dye things, polyester basically doesn't take dye, but a polyester mixed fabric will partly take dye, assuming whatever it's mixed with, which is usually cotton or linen, is a fabric fibre that will take dye. So essentially we've got kind of a 40% dye happening here, whereas the linen, this is 100% linen, and it's taken 100% of the colour. So I probably could have seen that coming a little bit, although to be honest, I think even then I would have been quite shocked at the colour difference. So let's talk about each of them in turn. I'm going to talk about the kids t-shirt first because that's the simplest. I think this is fairly successful. Probably went about the colour I was expecting, you never really know. Something to notice is that this had been dyed before and had been washed a lot. And so here, where the fabric has worn more, it has come out with like a yellowy stripe, because the green that I chose had quite a yellow base, and that's probably one of the problems with it, is that I was using a green dye that I've had a long time. The age of it I don't think was an issue, but I wouldn't have chosen a yellow based green if I was choosing now, because it's not really my colour. Now this t-shirt, strangely enough, isn't for me. It's for Felix, and his colouring is very different to mine, and actually this has come out a colour that I think would be good for me. And that little fold, because it is on the fold of the collar, once you're wearing it, it's not noticeable. And if you're 9 years old and a boy, equally not really noticeable. So I'm quite pleased with how that's worked out. The last thing to really tell about this one is this used to be a school shirt of his. Whether he will think it's different enough from a school shirt to ever wear it again, I don't know. But it's going to hang in his wardrobe, and we'll find out, because I know he looks really cute in this style of shirt. So we'll see. Quite nice colour, probably the best dye result in my opinion, but possibly not likely to get worn due to who's going to wear it. We'll see. How many times can I say we'll see? Can you tell I'm kind of slightly unsure about all of this? So next, let's go with the tie-dye. So the glaring elephant in the room. Look what the fabric dye did, where I already said there were issues under the arm. So earlier in the film I said the reason why this white t-shirt was getting dyed was because it wasn't really all that white anymore, and it had staining under the arms. It did have staining under the arms, but boy oh boy, slightly more noticeable now. I've never known dye to do that, but clearly there is something chemical going on that means that it's really attracted under the arms. So essentially this is totally unwearable, because if I was bothered about the underarm staining before, I'm definitely bothered about it now. But let us not think that all is lost. Let's have a look at what is alright. I am quite pleased with the stripe effect, actually. It didn't turn out quite as bright as would have been lovely, but to be honest, I didn't expect it to be perfect, because tie-dyeing is not usually meant to be done in a machine. Normally you would do it by hand, and you would be able to be slightly more careful about not getting dye where you've tied it. So considering this went through a whole machine process, and you can still see the stripes, I think that's quite a result. If this was blue and it didn't have the arm thing going on, I would love this. As it is, it's come out a colour that I think is not my colour, even if the arm thing. I'm not going to be wearing this, okay? So if the arm thing wasn't an arm thing, I'm not sure about the colour. Maybe, maybe not. I have a colour chart for my colouring, because at times I can go a bit off-piste. And here's a green. There's a few greens in here for me. And normally I'm best with the saturated colours, and this is definitely not the saturated colour. But as you can see, it's called May green, or in French chartreuse. But you can see the bottom green is actually pretty close. But I'm never sure whether I'm supposed to be picking just the top ones, because definitely the top ones of these are more like, so it's 100% saturated colour, then 85, and then 70% at the bottom. So still relatively saturated, not your full-on pastels, which are not really my colour for my skin. But yeah, so I don't particularly like it, and it's a yellow based green. Yellow is not the best colour. She says wearing a yellow cardigan. This is the only yellow item I own, and I do like this one, but anyway, I digress for a change. So I think the stripe technique, I was pleased with that. Some of the string fell off in the wash though. So this arm has got 5 stripes. This arm, oh, hang on, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that arm's got 5 stripes. 1, 2. Oh, that arm's got 5 stripes, but they're not as distinct. There were definitely bits of string in the bottom of the washing machine. So at some point in the process, I think this one probably fell off earlier, and this bottom one probably fell off earlier, where they're lighter, and the stripes are more distinct on this arm than they are on this arm. I probably, again, if the colour and the overall result arm thing had worked out better, probably wouldn't bother me as much. So I like that technique. So I learned something. However, this itself is going to go into the scrap bin because I've made it even more unwearable than when I started. Yay me! And finally, this fella. So this is a men's linen shirt, not my husband's, one that I got from a charity shop or thrift store, depending on where you live, or op shop. I love that name. Thank you, Australia. And it has come out a very, very vibrant green. Again, it's still a yellow based green, but it's more saturated. So if I go back to my colour card, I think it's pretty bang on the top of that. I was always going to be refashioning this fabric, so although it's in a shirt shape, it was always going to change into probably still being a shirt shape, but my shape, not men's large. So looking at it as fabric, I think it's a pretty good result. The stitching has gone a kind of aqua colour, and you always have to be aware that the stitching is not likely to take the dye in the same way that your fabric is, because stitching is usually polyester thread, and as we discovered with the t-shirt, as I already knew, but as the t-shirt shows, polyester doesn't take the dye in the same way. So this colour, according to the Bible of colour charts, is alright. It's turned out okay. Right now, in January, I have to say I'm not feeling that colour massively. I mean, I dyed it. But I think this is going to sit in my timeout pile until it's a bit more spring-like and I'm feeling all the greens, and then I will come back to it and do the refashioning. This has already sat in my house for 7 months anyway, because I think I bought it last summer, so it can wait a little bit longer, but now it's green. So there you go, a mixed result this time. Nothing actually wearable, maybe wearable. Let's be a bit kinder to myself. This is going to be okay. I guess I had hoped it would come out a different colour, but that's just magical thinking because it's come out the colour on the packet. T-shirt has gone weird, arm thing. And this shirt for my son, I think that's come out a pretty good colour, but I don't really know what the recipient's going to think. However, it was fun to do. And that's surely half the point. So thank you very much for watching. Let me know if you have ever dyed anything and the weird and wonderful results you've had, because I would like to know if I'm the only one, can't be, can I, who's ever had weird and wonderful results. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in a video really soon. Bye for now.